Hi, my name is Linda, and I'm the moderator for the service and my recovery workshop today. And I just want to say I know everyone is muted, and we do have a speaker that was pre-recorded. So I just want to put it out there that I have 2 dogs, and I have no one in the house with me. So if you hear barking in the background, it might be them, because there's no way I can mute that because then you won't hear the recording. So we have 2 speakers. And our speakers today will be talking about Tradition 6 and Concept 6. The principle for Tradition 6 is solidarity, and the principle for Concept 6 is responsibility. The 12 Steps and 12 Traditions of Overeaters Anonymous and the pamphlet 12 Concepts of OA Service are a great resource for more information about the traditions and concepts. And they are available at the OA bookstore. And the website for that, if you don't already know it, is www.oa.org. And I want to say, to stay in harmony with Tradition 6 and 10, we do ask that the speakers and the people that share mention only OA-approved literature. After each speaker, there will be time for sharing. This workshop is being recorded, as you know, and will be posted on the OA website on the podcast page, as well as other podcasts. You can get them through iTunes and things like that. If you speak, it will be considered implied consent to have your voice and your share recorded and posted. To preserve your anonymity, please use only your first name or a fictitious name when you share. We are all self-supporting through our own contributions. Please use the special workshop meeting number. If you have a pen, it's 82278 when making a contribution. And you can do this by going to OA.org and click on contributions. Donations may also be mailed to the World Service Office, Post Office Box 44020, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, 87174-4020. If you have any questions regarding contributions, you may contact the World Service Office at 505, that's the area code, 891-2664. Thank you all for helping us carry the message. So today, I am going to be the first speaker. My name is Linda. I'm a grateful compulsive overeater. I am going to tell my story for about 8 minutes, and then 10 minutes I'm going to talk on, I'm doing the Concept 6. That's what I'm speaking on. So anyway, like I said, my name is Linda. I'm a grateful compulsive overeater. And what I like to do is when I share in my story, I will be going back and forth how I use the traditions and the concepts in my recovery today. When I first came into OA, today I'm going to be really talking about my service when I came in and what I did. I came in to OA in 1987, and when I first came into the rooms, I did get abstinent, and that, my sponsor told me, was my first service, was to get abstinent. The second service was after taking first 3 steps, I became a sponsor, and I was able to sponsor up to the level of my experience, strength, and hope. And as I was doing that, I also continued working through the steps and studied the traditions with my sponsor so I could be of more service to the group. So those were the first 2 services that I did that I learned from my sponsor, staying abstinent and sponsoring. And that helped me so much in my program. The first time in, my story is not one without relapse. So the first time in, I got abstinent right away. I lost 65 pounds, and I was happy. I thought that this was it. I lost my weight, but that's not it. Working through the steps, I saw that what was making me eat. I was an emotional eater, so anything that happened, I would want to stuff food in my face. And I've heard a lot of stories, a lot of people are like that they're an emotional eater. Anything, if I was happy, sad, mad, you name it, if it was a feeling, I just wanted to stuff it down with food. So by working through the steps, I learned how to not do that by using the steps, by writing, using the tools of writing, going to meetings, reading my literature, making phone calls. That was important. The traditions also showed me how to do service, how to work with people. And that, I feel, helped me also in my personal life, how to get along with people, how to get along with my husband. And it was funny because before, if I didn't like what you had to say, I just dismissed you and I didn't have to talk to you anymore. You know, I was like, I didn't have to be friends with you. So through the traditions, I learned that it was okay to disagree and it was okay to listen to other people and listen to other opinions. And I learned that all through my service work. The first 10 years, I was in OA in New York, and I did a lot of group service, meeting service. I carried the key and opened the meetings. I put out chairs. I led meetings. I made coffee. I was a phone call maker to newcomers. I would go to intergroup sponsored events, and my sponsor said that was good service. I never really wanted to get into any other service because I was fear-based. I was afraid. And I did many of these things in New York. When I came to Florida, I was in Florida, and I was at that point in my recovery when I moved. It was a big life-changing event. There were so many things going on. I had to sell my house. My mother had cancer. There were a lot of life-changing events, and I lost, really what I lost was my support when I moved to Florida. And I came to meetings, but I felt like it wasn't the meetings, it was me. I was spiting myself. They weren't the same as New York. I was doing that old comparison, like I would compare myself. And that really doesn't work when you compare. I could identify with these people, but I didn't do it. So when I moved to Florida, after about a month or two, with all this that was going on, I went into relapse. I knew what I had to do. But, you know, when you're trying to do it alone, it just doesn't work. So I got back to the meetings, and I got myself a sponsor. And she was willing to work with me. She helped me get abstinent. But one of her requirements of being a sponsor to me was that I had to do service. And at the time, she was the intergroup chair. And I really knew nothing about intergroup and what that did. So I agreed, and we went to intergroup, and it was after a while I went to these meetings, and I was getting abstinent. And as soon as I hit my required time, she said to me, I think you need to apply for a position. So that week, I went to the intergroup meeting, and they needed an acting secretary. So lo and behold, I walked out of that meeting, the acting secretary. And that was kind of like the beginning of my service career. I loved doing service. It helped me to stay abstinent. It helped me keep connected to people because I am an isolator. I can sit home and just isolate and not reach out to anyone, and that's not good for me. So this was good. I was the secretary. I was needed. I did the reports. I took the minutes. I recorded the minutes, and I got them out in the report. And then the next position that came up was treasurer. I think I did that position for 2 years, and then I became the treasurer of the group. So I really moved on with my service. And every position that I had, I enjoyed because it kept me abstinent. And I was also giving back to the group. That's another part of contributing, not only money-wise, but doing service. If nobody did service, we wouldn't have our groups or our intergroups. You know, there were people that planned events. We did a lot of event planning, making retreats happen, things like that. So I enjoyed all that work. After the treasurer, I became the chair of our intergroup. And that was a really fun position. I enjoyed doing all these things, getting retreats together. It was kind of doing 12-step work, reaching out to people, getting retreats together, getting marathons together. And at the time, our intergroup was small, and there was only about 5 or 6 of us when I became chair that were doing these events. And it was very interesting to see that the 6 of us could really make a success of this. You know, some people think you need a lot of people. And, you know, the more hands make a job easier. But the 6 of us did a great deal of work, and we tried to have a workshop every month, and it was really very nice. I became a intergroup rep, and I went to our SOAR 8 Business Assembly and Convention. And there I became a funded chair for the 12-Step Within. I just love doing service. And from there I moved on, and I am working currently at the World Service level. So what I wanted to talk about, that's kind of like my story. What I wanted to talk about was Concept 6. And I'm going to read Concept 6 to you. It says, the World Service Business Conference has entrusted the Board of Trustees with the primary responsibility for the administration of Overeaters Anonymous. And the principle is responsibility. And I know when people read these, it doesn't make sense to them. But when you kind of break it down and think about it, I know when I first came in, I didn't think about this stuff. But when you break it down and you think about it, there's a little blurb right here that I want to read to you also that maybe will make it easy for you to understand what Concept 6 means and how you can use it in your groups. It says the trustees answer directly to the World Service Business Conference delegates, and we do. I'm just going to take that little piece and talk about that. We do. We are the inverted pyramid. So of course we are at the bottom. The groups, the members are on top, and we are responsible for carrying out the directives that we receive from the body. So what I wanted to talk to you about that was if you are in an intergroup and you go to an intergroup, and I think in January, February, there is a questionnaire that comes out from World Service, and these are motions that are brought by the body. And we put this out and have the groups vote on it, and this is the responsibility of the groups, the intergroups, to vote on this so that we know as trustees what to put on the agenda for the World Service Business Conference. So we do that, and it says here, this is to ensure that business flows smoothly and that issues are addressed in a timely manner. So we have motions that come in, and every year the World Business Conference talks about these issues that are brought up by the service body. It says delegates understand that a smaller group able to meet frequently is the most effective way to oversee world services. So that's when they pick the trustees. They're voted on at the World Service Business Conference, and it's a group effort. It's a group conscience because they vote to entrust us with the responsibility of overseeing OA as a whole. The only way we can do that is by the help of the members. I never understood that before, that's a responsibility. And that filters down to intergroups also. When you vote to have people come, when you vote for your chair or your vice chair or your treasurer, secretary, you're entrusting them with the responsibility to do a job for all your meetings that are in your area. In my area, that we happen to have 23 meetings. So that is the best way I can explain responsibility. We also have a responsibility to carry the message, which to me, by outreach calls, doing 12-step within work, doing PIPO, which is public information, public outreach, that is a way for us to carry the message. And I think we all are responsible for that in some way to keep OA going. I just love this. I'm in OA for 27 years, and my life has changed drastically. Not only my weight, but my outlook on life, how I live my life, and my attitude towards life. I have an attitude of gratitude today. So I'm going to end with that. I just want to remind you, there's going to be about 7 minutes for sharing. I want to remind you that the workshop is being recorded and will be posted on the OA website. If you speak, it is considered implied consent to have your voice and your share recorded and posted. So please only use your first names or a fictitious name. So I'm going to open up for sharing. So if you would like, we were asked to kind of think of a question. And the question I want to put out to everybody is, do you feel a responsibility to carry the message and do service to keep OA going? So I'm going to open that up. If anybody would like to, they can share. So I'm going to stop talking and let people have time to share.
Hi, this is Andy.
Hi, Andy.
Hi there. I'd like to share. You know, the responsibility pledge for me is so important because every time I walk into a meeting, I'm so grateful others are there for me and that I can be there for them. Coming back from World Service this year, it was really hard hit with our responsibility to carry the message. And so without being the person that says to everybody, come along with me and you'll get the answers you need, and like I was when I first came in 90, you know, this is the answer, come with me, you know. I'm trying to help people see that by carrying the message, by sharing my story, by allowing others to see how my program works for me and how OA can work for them is such an awesome, awesome experience for me. And when it falls on deaf ears, it just means they're not ready to hear it yet. But I move on to others that are. That's an important thing for me to remember because there's lots of us out there, and maybe these people are not necessarily ready, but there are people that are out there that are ready. So my service, my part of service is definitely keeping in touch, staying connected, and informing people that OA is here. It's like the last house on the block. We can help. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, we have a few minutes for more sharing.
Hi, this is Jason J., grateful recovering compulsive overeater in St. Petersburg, Florida. And I'd like to thank Linda for her qualification in leading this workshop and for the topic that's proposed of being the message and carrying the message, which first and foremost, it's important that I be the message, embrace the 12 steps of recovery, the 12 traditions, and the 12 concepts of service because they overlap and they go into all areas of my life, not just with my food. I mean, stopping the compulsive eating and having God remove 152 pounds from my body is far secondary to the spiritual growth and development that's found in working all the steps and the traditions and the concepts and utilizing the principles contained therein. And I'm a simple man, and I've been given a simple set of instructions as outlined for me in the AA Big Book, but also the OA literature. It overlaps because it's all derived from that source book. To the best of my knowledge, that's where most of the material comes from. And, yeah, I do my part by having served in various levels, local, region, and the World Service as a delegate. God has, allowed me to go 3 years in a row as a delegate because the first year I was able to take over for somebody that couldn't go because they moved. And so that's all part of God's direction in my life today. And serving on a committee, the PI, and laterally with the PO committee at World Service because it's split, trying to, connect and trying to stay abreast to what the other committees are doing and participating behind the scenes, not officially serving because you can only serve on one committee at World Service level. But, trusting the trusted servants, our trustees, I've had the privilege of meeting all of them, and they're human beings, and they're compulsive eaters just like me. There's more in common than not. And so whenever I feel like I'm being dejected or rejected, I have to look at my part of it and not allow myself to go into relapse. I've been in OA since 1985 with 2 major relapses. And I'm here to tell you it's only by God's infinite will and mercy in the 12 steps that I'm here in a normal-sized body today, able to express myself and not have the fear that I once had. That fear used to rule every corner of my life. And so, I mean, it's not as pronounced today. There's tragedies happening today. I didn't have a knee-jerk reaction. I didn't go through a drive-through. I just said, all I can do is pray and trust, surrender, and accept what is, not what I want it to be. It's not about me. It's a we program. Always to extend the hand and heart of OA to those who share my compulsion. For this, I am responsible. I owe my life to this program, and I will close with that. And if anybody wants to email me, my email address is jj2955@hotmail.com, jj2955 at Hotmail. I love you all. Let's stay sober and abstinent, and peace be with you.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay. We have time for another small share.
Hey, everybody. This is Chris J. from Huntsville, Alabama.
Hey, Chris J.
Hey. Just want to say thank you so much, Linda, for your share, and so much of that touched me in a very personal way. Especially I like about the first thing about staying abstinent and then sponsoring. I've always said one of the absolute most important ways that we can be of service to our group is through sponsoring, being abstinent, getting my own sponsor, and then also sponsoring. And I was very fortunate. My very first sponsor that I had, I never met her. She was a sponsor by mail and phone. I lived in Germany, and she lived in Texas. One of the first things she said, if I was going to be in OA and get abstinent, that I needed to do service. And so at the very start, I was able, scared to death, living in a foreign country, even as a matter of fact, do service at the group level and then in the English Language Service Board. And I'm just always grateful for that. And for a long time, I only thought that my service revealed my character defects because I learned so much from it, and it's been through continuing service and abstinence, imperfect abstinence, albeit, and then I've been able to see that service and carrying the messages also revealed to me my strengths that some of them I didn't even know I had. So it's kind of like come full circle on that, and by carrying the message, and I like what was said before, being the message, and then carrying the message. So I also believe firmly that gratitude is service is gratitude in action. And I heard that at one of the conferences, and that's a good work for me. So thanks to everybody else who helps keep me abstinent and gives the message so that I can see the message and then maybe even carry it myself. So thanks.
Thank you, Chris. This is halftime now, as they say in football. That's an outside issue. There is a seventh tradition, and I'm going to repeat this again. So remember that we are self-supporting through our own contributions. Please use special workshop meeting number, got a pen, 82278 when making your contribution. You can go to oa.org and click on contributions if you want to contribute that way. Or you can send a donation to the World Service Office, P.O. Box 44020, Rio Rancho, New Mexico, 87174-4020. And if you're contributing by check, please put on your check the meeting number again, which is 82278. So at this time, I am going to introduce our second speaker, Sue J. from UK. She's going to speak on Tradition 6.
Hello, so my name is Sue, and I'm a compulsive overeater. I'm recording this in my little room in Staffordshire in Middle England. That's sort of just above Birmingham, if you know much about England and where we are. I'm right out in the country in a very peaceful environment with sheep opposite me. And I'm hoping that the technology works here between myself and the lady who's sorting this your end. And I'm sorry I'm not with you listening in real time. So yeah, I'm Sue. I'm a compulsive overeater. I've been 21 years in program. Isn't that amazing? I can't believe that. I go to 2 meetings a week. I worked this out in pounds for you. We do stone over here, stones, but I think it's about 56 pounds that I've lost, maintaining that loss since about 1998. And I'm a healthy body weight, and I know that because I do this body mass index thing. It's a sort of a medical thing that people do here. I don't know if they do that in America too. And so I know that my BMI, my body mass index, is a healthy weight, and that's the only way I know that, because I have a crazy brain still and a crazy vision when it comes to my own body sometimes. So yeah, I've been abstinent since the summer of 97, and for me that's abstaining from binging and my specific addictive foods, which I have some specific foods that I don't eat a day at a time. Yeah, and if I make it through another week, I'll have had 19 years next weekend, by higher power's grace. So I just want to be clear here that these next 20 minutes is going to be my thoughts, my experience. Obviously, I'm not speaking for OA in any official capacity here. And some of the things I say I've heard either in meetings or bits and pieces I picked up out of literature. So if I'm not able to tell you where exactly they came from, it's because I can't remember. But most of it is, stuff that's been passed on to me. So myself, my own program, most of the time I feel really well, and sometimes I don't. Sometimes I feel utterly miserable, low and anxious. At the moment, sometimes I don't sleep well, sometimes I'm worrying about other people, or sometimes I'm worrying about my own life, and I'm in the middle of retiring, and am I making a right choice or not? But through all this, I don't have thoughts. Very rarely do I have thoughts of food and eating as a solution to my problems. In the first 2 years of my abstinence, I did have a lot of food thoughts, but they lessened with time and with working the steps. But through all this, and nowadays I have a plan. This is what OA has given me. I've got a plan based around the 12 steps, based around abstaining today no matter what, based around the fact that I'm a member of OA. So I've got loads and loads of people and other resources and all sorts that I can connect to. If I have to sum up my program in 5 words, I used to be able to sum it up in 4 words, and then a 5th word sort of crept in, really, as realising that was important. And it would look like this. The 4 words would be surrender, prayer, inventory, and service. That's the way it is for me. And then the 5th word that has struck me in the last year or 2 is compassion, which I put next to prayer, really. So the surrender for me has been around surrendering to the physical allergy. There's certain foods I can't eat and certain food behaviours I just can't do. They trigger off my addictive reaction to them, and then I just keep craving more. Surrendering to them, so I have to surrender to the need for a plan of eating, surrender to the need for OA, surrendering on all sorts of levels. It's another great topic, isn't it? Prayer has been a key part of my programme, obviously, and that's where the compassion comes in too with me somehow. That's linked to the prayer. Compassion for myself and compassion for others. Inventory, obviously, to me, that's the middle chunk of the steps, and inventory and learning my part in stuff and admitting my part in stuff to other people, absolute key. And service, for me, has always been really key. It sort of struck me very early on in programme that the people who had what I wanted, they did some service. They invested time and energy into OA, and they immersed themselves in the fellowship. I think this quote comes from the Wildest Dreams book, Beyond Your Wildest Dreams, I can't remember which way around it is, about being firm with myself, with my food, and gentle with myself, with my feelings. And that does sum up how I am really, how my, basic program, bottom line. But I would also add gentle with myself, with my thoughts too, because I've come to realise in OA that I am a person who has very extreme thoughts. So extreme, to be honest, that I moderate who I share them with sometimes, because I have really extreme thoughts, and I've come to see through the prayer and meditation that they're just thoughts and they aren't necessarily indicative of anything other than that's just the way my brain is in that moment. So being gentle with myself about them is, I think I heard apparently came from World Service Business Conference from last month. I really like that phrase about if I can't moderate, I need to eliminate. And I think for me, with regarding my food and my other behaviours, that's a really good criteria. And then the other thing I heard a long, long while ago, I think this is from the history of OA as well, is about the idea of submerging my ego for the good of the group. And that, to me, is partly where the service comes in. I have to submerge my ego for the good of the group, the good of OA as a whole, but especially for the good of my recovery, which is around the surrender, which is around like giving up on what I know and listening to somebody else and see what they know and trying it out. And this is another phrase that I just read from someone's report the other day from World Service Business Conference last month about I learned to do what was suggested from people who had what I wanted. And that really sums up a lot of how I've been with my program. That I saw somebody who had what I wanted, and I learned to do what they were doing, and they just suggested it. Obviously, they didn't tell me, but I could see the logic in that they were doing this. I can remember meeting a woman who was folding literature. In the UK, we print under license from World Service quite a bit of literature, and then we pay copyright, whatever you call it, every 3 months or something back to World Service. And so the stuff would come, and then it needed folding. And I remember seeing this woman sitting folding the literature, and I just thought, yeah, that's what you do. Yeah, sit and fold literature, Sue. It did her good. So I've done a bit of that in my time. And everything for me, all of this program, everything I've learned really is always based on a platform of entire abstinence. Like it says in the big book, doesn't it, about we had to be entirely abstinent. I think that's right at the beginning I'm not sure if it's in the doctor's opinion. And for me, I have to be entirely abstinent from my specific eating, the addictive eating behaviours and my specific addictive foods. So I need to speak a little bit about my service history. As I've already said, for me, it's always been part of getting well. I didn't ever expect to get well without doing service, because the people I knew had a big, I don't know if you want to call it a culture of service, I suppose, in my intergroup. Obviously not everybody did, but it was very clear to me, that the ones who had what I wanted, they were giving back. They were giving back to OA. And I feel like I made a deal really with God somehow, with my higher power, long, long while ago now. I think it was in about 97, that, I would give God everything. I would give God everything, and I would surrender my food, and I would surrender the idea that I knew what to do about my food. I surrendered it to people who knew more about the food and the addiction with food than I did. And I would serve God, basically. I would serve my higher power in any way that I could. And for me, that's been about within the fellowship hugely, as much as I can, really, as much as I'm able. So, yeah, I went to intergroup when I'd been around about 9 months, and I started getting involved in that. And for many years, I've done all sorts of things at intergroup level: treasurer, chair, public information, the meeting list, organiser. That was back in the day when it was much more complicated than it is now. It's very straightforward now, everything online. I've been the Region 9 rep there. And then Great Britain, we have an extra service level, which I don't think many of you guys in America have. We have a National Service Board that covers the whole of Great Britain, and then we have intergroups as well that cover parts of Britain. So we can have up to 14 trustees on this service board. It's called OAGB. You can have a look at our website if you like. I've done a couple of stints on that. We do a 4-year stint at a time, and I've done 2 of those. Just finished one last year, done various roles there, chaired it for a while. I was very fortunate to be the World Service rep several times, both times, so that's been fabulous to get over to you and come to Albuquerque. I've done public information on that there as well, communications, literature liaison. Like I say, we have our own literature service where we import from the UK a lot, but we also print some of our own. And in between the 2 stints, which was about 6 years or 8 years off, I started a recording group locally where we would record workshops and shares and then sell them, put them onto CDs and sell them to members. And that was great service. It really helped me. And I actually think it's probably one of the most effective things I've ever done as a message carrier in person, really. Since finishing OAGB this time, I'm doing more sponsorship. And that's nice. It's nice to be able to have the time and the availability. I'm pretty firm around sponsoring. This is my approach, really. When somebody asks me, I very rarely say no these days. And previously I have done sometimes when I'm doing lots of other service, especially on the OAGB. It was quite time consuming. But I rarely say no, but I do lay out my expectations around sponsorship, how it's going to be, timings, when they're going to phone me, what they're going to do, about abstinence, basically. That's what they're going to do. They're going to be abstinent. What I'm expecting from them. I say to them, I'm expecting you to do, for example, 20 minutes step work every day, probably 5 days out of 7 as a minimum. Expect you to check in with me regularly, but daily to begin with, just email or text. I don't normally do phone calls too often. We're going to have a weekly phone call, and it's going to start at whatever time we say. If we say we're going to talk at 5, then we start at 5 for half an hour, and if they phone in late, we still finish at 5:30. They're going to do some regular connection with their higher power, prayer, meditation, that sort of thing, whatever that's going to develop. They're going to do some service at the group. That's part of the deal with me, and then above group level, once they're stably abstinent, they're going to work the steps. I also actually tell them nowadays, and I'm a bit direct, I suppose. I just like to lay it out that I am not their perfect mother, I'm not their perfect friend, although we may become very friendly. We will be friendly, and I'm not their perfect therapist. I like to be very clean and clear, because fundamentally I'm only really doing the service to keep me well. Ideally, they will get really well, but logically that might not happen. So, I'm very much into, I do the job in front of me and I let go of the outcomes, because the outcomes are not my business. In a perfect world, of course, OA would be run this way and that way, and everybody would be abstinent and all the newcomers would stay, but that's not reality, is it? Okay, so now I'm going to talk a little bit about the topic, which is really Edition 6. And I had a read of Edition 6 in the OA 12 and 12, and I haven't read it for a while, and it's really excellent. And really, I could just shut up talking now, and you could just go and read that, because it does put it all so much better than I ever could. And I also, like I already mentioned, I really also like Beyond Our Wildest Dreams, because I think they have really good, it's loads of stuff to really help us widen our understanding of the traditions, the concepts, the whole fellowship, all the struggles that they had and what the fellowship's been through to get where we are. And I also think it's got loads of real recovery-based ideas. I find it very inspirational. So step 6 talks about our primary purpose. I think, well, what is my primary purpose? What am I doing here? My primary purpose is, I think for me, is to abstain from compulsive overeating and to carry the message. And what is the primary purpose of a group? Yeah, the primary purpose of the group is to carry its message. So we need to be certain, don't we, that the group carries a message which fits with the message contained in the 12 steps. This is my view, which the message in the 12 steps is a plan for how to live life without having to overeat. That's how I feel, that I don't need to overeat. On a daily basis, I hardly ever think about overeating anymore, so long as I stay in fit spiritual condition. So working the steps does that for me, a day at a time. But that's not all, is it? That's not all the primary purposes. We have to be clear that we're not doing all the stuff that it talks about, about endorsement of outside enterprises, and we have to be clear that, we're not a mutual support group. We're not a place for me to come to and talk about how terrible I feel and hoping to feel better, And that to me is not what the group's about. The group's about me going there each week and telling people, yes, how I feel, and then I tell them what I've done this week so that I haven't had to overeat. We're not a fundraising group, we're not a mental health group, we're not even a friendship group really, although we all are pretty friendly. Talk about not endorsement of outside enterprises, and I think that when people come to our programme they don't really understand what that means, so I think it's up to us if we're old timers to explain, and it says it all very clearly in that chapter, so I won't really go into that. About eating disorders, we don't mention perhaps an eating disorders clinic, or we don't collaborate with other services like churches or mental health services or dietitians. We stay free of all that. They're potentially controversial, but fundamentally they're not our business. And other things that are outside issues, like other literature or, plastic food boxes, which are actually really very useful. I find them very useful, but we don't sell them in the meetings, we don't sell other helpful books or anything. We just stick with OA literature. I think one of the key things about what keeps a meeting really well, actually, is if we can actually focus the sharing as much as we can on programme. That's my personal view. Don't share about outside issues, what a book might say, or what we saw on the television, or what my therapist might have told, if I had a therapist, what she might have said to me. Because OA has been a real gateway to other stuff for me. I've learned loads of other things. I've got lots of other related interests, but I don't mention them by name in my meeting. There's a story on page 156 in the OA 12 and 12 about a treatment centre, but it's the same. If you read it, the solution is the same solution, really. That basically it's okay to share my experience without mentioning the specific name. So they say, they don't mention the name of the treatment centre. So if I see something on a film that I find interesting, I might just share what it meant to me. Same with a religion, same with any therapy. I won't share about what their therapist is saying, but I might say, I don't know, I can't think of an example off the top of my head quick enough, but if I just heard of some sort of concept, I might share on that general concept and how that helped me. And the other thing, of course, that we are not supposed to do is to share about other 12-step groups. That does happen a little bit in my meeting, I have to say, and it's a tricky one because we seem to be endorsing them, don't we? If we talk, other people talk at length about what they get up to in their other group, and it's not ideal at all. It's really not ideal. The trouble is, and this is the thing, isn't it, that it's difficult to challenge people. You know, we don't want to be challenging people. That's not what I want to be doing. But sometimes I have. I've spoken out over the years when I've seen outside issues brought into the room, and I have learned a lot personally from doing this. Sometimes it's made me feel highly uncomfortable indeed is an understatement. Sometimes it makes me feel real eek. You know, sometimes we've had fierce discussions as a result, and sometimes I've been in a situation where members have not returned because of the controversy. They felt so rejected by it. Now, was I right or wrong? I don't know, but I just believe I have to say something. I think we're all responsible for our own recovery and for keeping OA healthy, and so my part there is I try to do it very gently, which is what I've seen other people do, but people have been perhaps bringing in a song or music they wanted to play in a meeting, and you know, it just isn't what we do. So I think I'm probably better at doing this than I was 18 years ago. I like to think I'm a bit more gentle about that. Never going to be perfect, hey. I have a thing on the bottom of my food plan. I don't know where I got this from. This has been on there a long while. I have a little typed up thing. It says, anywhere you don't have responsibility, don't bother to have an opinion. And I think as a basic thing for life, that works well for me. But the reverse is also true. You know, in OA, regard to traditions and Tradition 6, I have a responsibility towards OA to maintain them, you know, to support them and to honour them, really. So if people are sharing in meetings things that I don't think is appropriate, then sooner or later, sometimes the situation disappears because they basically leave, but generally I'd say something. So I've got a couple of questions for you. One of them, this is for you to, I think you're going to share on this, aren't you? In what ways have you observed or used Tradition 6 in your life? I don't somehow think I've talked much about that, but for me the traditions work in my life in a very clever and very helpful way. There's a load of real fundamental principles that I think are really good. And then I want to read quite a long question, which is around what I was talking about. When we share it, this is from the OA Tradition 6, 12 and 12. When we share in meetings, are we careful not to imply an OA endorsement of outside enterprises, such as hospitals, eating disorders, treatment programs, other 12-step groups, clubs, books, publications, ministries, and therapies? Do we overemphasize these and underemphasize our OA experiences? And then the third question is on the back of that, really, is why don't we? If we do that, or if we see it done, how do we do something about that? That's the sort of, I'm thinking, really, what's the difficulty in me? And for me, often it's fear-based, and it's like, I just want you to like me, so I don't want to be the person standing up and saying, you know what, we don't really do that here. Anyway, that's about it from me, and I believe you're going to be listening to this sometime in June. So think of me in the piece of an English garden. I'll be thinking of you too. Thank you.
So anyway, I'm going to open this up to sharing. And again, if you want to share, press *6 to unmute and share. And then when you're done, press *6 to remute yourself. So we have a few minutes left to sharing.
Hi, Linda. This is Stephanie. May I share?
Sure. Thank you.
I liked what Sue had to say when she said we have to be firm with the food, but gentle with our feelings and our thoughts. To me, that's been so much my history in OA that I needed to have a real clear-cut plan of eating in order to have the food set aside enough to work on the other part of the program. I'm just really grateful to hear other people validate what it is that works for me. She also asked a question about how do we use Tradition 6. One of the things that I thought about was one time I was doing a Traditions workshop and I was looking around on the internet to see what was available through other fellowships and stuff. And one of the things they talked about is using this idea of keeping focused on our primary purpose so that we don't get diverted by other things. And one of the things that it said, that it talked about is how we use it in our life is, can I hear God's voice when I'm screaming at my husband, my kids, the postman, whatever? And that really struck me. At first blush, you may think, well, how does that relate? But to me, if I'm representative of what Overeaters Anonymous is, then I want to present myself in a way that presents OA well. That thought about how do I hear God's voice when I'm doing those kind of things has really been helpful. Just that idea that when I start to do something like that, it's just sort of like that. And as Sue said, that idea of being gentle on myself when I do it and reel myself back in. Thank you for letting me share. Thanks for a wonderful workshop, Linda. Very much appreciated.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thanks for sharing. We have some more time for sharing.
Hey, Linda, it's Gloria in Orlando. May I share?
Sure. Hi, Gloria. Welcome.
Hi. I really want to thank you, and I think it was Sue. Was it Sue? I want to thank you very much for speaking. I was just thinking about personal responsibility a lot from the concept and the tradition. And when I came into OA, I was totally dependent on food, and in order to get off that dependency on food, I had to embrace the OA program, and so I became dependent upon my OA program. And I want to make sure that OA is there for me for the rest of my life and for the lives of others that are coming after me. Before OA, I used to let other people do all the work. But what I learned in OA is that I have to take some personal responsibility. And so if I want OA to be there, I need to take responsibility first, as both you and said, for my own personal abstinence, and then for sharing that message of recovery with other people, so that when 20 years from now, when I'm shuffling along in my walker wearing my mismatched clothes, I want to be meeting up with my OA buddies in abstinence in a strong OA. Thanks for letting me share, and thanks for your wonderful service.
Thank you, Gloria. Thanks for yours, too. We have some more time. Anybody else would like to share? The mic is open.
Hi, this is Andy. Can you hear me?
Hi, Andy. Sure.
Hi. I, too, am one of these people that is so grateful that the rooms are here and the people are here for me. And the way in which I get service is to make sure that I can carry that message and the rooms will be here for years to come. The closest friends, the closest people that understand this sick mind of mine are in my program, are in my recovery, are in OA. And from the very beginning, it has been such acceptance that I know there are people out there that need that same feeling of acceptance. And it's my purpose to make sure that they can receive it and know that it's here. For years, I used to say, what's my purpose in life? And then I suddenly realized this is my purpose. This is where I'm at. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I am so grateful for the opportunity. Linda, thank you so much for sharing today and for giving of yourself and everybody else who was on the line today. It's so important for me to continue to hear and listen and grow and give back. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, the time has come where we have to close. And I'm just going to read this to you. The opinions expressed here, of course we hear this at our meetings, the opinions expressed here today are those of individual OA members and do not represent OA as a whole. Please join us next month for Tradition 7 and Concept 7, and I am sorry, I don't know what the topic is. So I'd like to close this workshop with the third step prayer. And if you would like to stay muted, we can all say the third step prayer together. God, I offer myself to thee.
I offer myself to thee.
To build
with me.
And do with me.
As thou wilt.
As thou wilt.
Relieve me of the
Relieve
bondage
me of
of
the
self.
bondage of self.
So
that I may better do
that
thy
I may
will.
better do thy work.
Take away my difficulties.
Take away my difficulties.
That victory over
them.
May bear
witness
of
thy
power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will
always.
Keep calling back. It works if you work it.
Keep coming back.
It works if you put a lot of love. Yeah.
Amen.
Thank you.